UK Prime Minister Liz Truss's Premiership is under renewed pressure after another chaotic day which saw the resignation of her Home Secretary Suella Braverman. In just 6 weeks in office, Truss has been forced to abandon most of her entire policy programme. There's now a growing call to oust the UK Prime Minister from number 10 Downing Street. Many Conservative lawmakers want Truss to resign immediately. Tory MPs Henry Smith and Steve Double are the latest to call for Liz Truss to step down. Speaking on Times Radio, Henry Smith said, "We need new leadership," adding that Truss should admit that she had made the wrong calls since stepping into office. Earlier, a Conservative MP said that Prime Minister Liz Truss had around 12 hours to turn her premiership around. Another said Truss's position as Prime Minister is wholly untenable, saying she must be removed as soon as possible. Earlier, the UK government won a vote in Parliament that was against introducing a ban on fracking for shale gas, 326 votes to 230. But it wasn't without accusations of chaos behind the scenes. Conservative lawmakers saying they were confused about whether they were obliged to vote in line with the government. Some opposition MPs allege that Tories were manhandled, accusing the Conservative Party of bullying.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I would urge you to launch an investigation into the scenes outside the entrance to the No Lobby earlier. As you know, members are expected to be able to vote without fear or favour.
Yes.
And the Behaviour Code, which is agreed by the whole of the House, says that there shall never be bullying or harassment of members. I saw members being physically manhandled into another lobby and being bullied.
While crying.
If we want to stand up against bullying in this House of our staff, we have to stop bullying in this chamber as well, don't we?
To be perfectly honest, this whole affair is inexcusable. It is a pitiful reflection on the Conservative Parliamentary Party at every level. And it reflects really badly, obviously, on the government of the day.
The Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, has launched an investigation into reports of misconduct in the voting lobbies. Labour Shadow Minister Anna McMorran said on Twitter that she witnessed one Conservative MP in tears after the vote. In the early hours of Thursday morning, Number 10 has said that the Tory MPs who chose to abstain from voting would face proportionate disciplinary action. And as Truss continues to face pressure in Number 10, former Transport Minister Grant Shapps has been appointed as the Interior Minister. He replaces Suella Braverman, who resigned yesterday over a technical breach of government rules. Well, for more on this, we can speak to our London correspondent, Alex Isert, who joins us live now. Alex, Grant Shapps starting his new jobs today, but it hasn't come without controversy, has it? After his predecessor, Suella Braverman, published a letter taking a bit of a swipe at Liz Truss's government. Tell us more.
Absolutely. So she was asked to resign due to a breach. And we did hear in the Commons earlier that it was sent from her personal email address and it was about immigration. And that's why she had left. So it was a quick turnaround for Liz Truss to put someone in her place. And choosing Grant Shapps was quite interesting because he had been quite against Liz herself and had been pushing for Rishi Sunak to become leader. So using him as the choice that somebody had who had previously backstabbed Liz Truss, and then bringing him onto the team is the great saying, bring your enemies closer. But he hasn't yet spoken about the role that he's been giving. Suella Braverman wrote her resignation letter, said that she didn't believe that Liz Truss was going forward in the way that she had hoped. And then, of course, we saw yesterday the chaos and the absolute debacle that happened when there was a lot of jostling and supposed manhandling, that now the investigation is running forward. So there still is so much chaos and controversy going on within the party itself. And now we understand that Liz Truss has asked Sir Graham Brady from the 1922 committee to join her in a meeting. They're having a meeting right now, and Therese Coffey has now joined them as well. Apparently, the government is saying that it's just trying to figure out what exactly the Conservative members want and whether or not they are going to be pushing for Liz Truss to actually resign or leave her position or be forced out. Yesterday, we only had 5 MPs who said outright that they wanted her to go. Today we've got 14. It's happened so quickly. It looks like that there is literally hours left to figure out what's going on with Liz Truss. We thought we might have until October 31st until that OBR forecast comes out. Everything seems to be really rushed forward, and it looks like we might have some answers by the end of the day.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on Downing Street there to see what happens with that meeting between Graham Brady and Liz Truss. Of course, Graham Brady being the chair of the 1922 committee, that is a pretty important group of MPs that can, of course, decide whether or not a leader should be removed from power. Normally, the rules are that a new Prime Minister would stay in power for a year at least before being challenged. But seemingly, things are at crisis point in the UK right now. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for that update. We can go now to Renaud Foucault. He's a political analyst and senior lecturer in economics at the University of Lancaster. He's joining us now. Renaud, can you just give us a bit of insight into what all of this chaos might mean for the UK's economy moving forward? Of course, we've seen since the announcement of that mini-budget or so-called mini-budget by Liz Truss and her former Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, that the power of the sterling, that fell, and we've seen mortgage rates rising, interest rates rising overall after the Bank of England was forced to step in and rise its own interest rates. What are we looking at in terms of the chaos that this is imposing on the UK economy?
Well, the first thing, which is somehow a good news, is the fact that since the new Chancellor is in power, the markets, in particular the market on the British debt, have largely calmed down. And it seems that investor markets tend to trust what the Chancellor has been doing now, which is, roughly speaking, to curb down and to cancel everything that Liz Truss was campaigning on. Now, what can market expect in the future? The Prime Minister at the moment has no power. I don't see any future Prime Minister possibly replacing her, changing the Chancellor. So I guess we're on a path of relatively standard austerity, so there will be spending cuts. We cannot expect a lot of investment. We're seeing all the levelling up agenda of Boris Johnson seems to be ditched up for the foreseeable future. But in terms of banking panic, I hope that the worst is behind us, because the Chancellor has been replaced and all the fantasy economics on which Liz Truss raised to Prime Minister has been built, all of this has been cancelled now.
And where does that leave the Conservatives then pushing forward? Of course, there is talk about a general election, whether or not the Conservatives will risk that, given that a lot of the polls are saying that Labour are so far ahead in the approval ratings. Where does it leave the Conservatives if it's trying to put together a manifesto to push forward and win votes from the public? Seemingly, they've had to ditch a lot of those previous promises, so they must be in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah, they are completely lost at the moment. I think they really have absolutely no idea whatsoever what to do. They've been elected on the promises of Boris Johnson, and it didn't happen. Plus, it was largely on the charisma, on the persona of Boris Johnson, and this has been completely discredited by all the scandals, all the affairs. Then there was this hope from a share, relatively important share of the Conservative Party to push for those tax cuts, for this idea of fostering growth through tax cuts. That didn't work out. And at the moment, I don't think any of them wants to push for a general election. They would be completely wiped out. But I don't think they can agree on anything at the moment. What are they standing for? What is their objective? What does define the Conservative Party at the moment? They purged so many people. They got rid of so many people after Brexit. They really focused on this relatively narrow, somehow extreme pro-Brexit part of the party to try to push forward this agenda. Now it's been discredited. It's been cancelled. So what are they standing for? I think until they find an answer to this question, there is no way they will stand for a general election.
Well, everyone's going to keep their eyes on number 10, on Westminster, of course, getting reaction as well from Conservative MPs themselves as to what they think of their leader and their party and what it stands for moving forward. But clearly, there's going to be some ongoing turbulence in London and across the UK. Renaud Foucault, a political analyst and senior lecturer in economics at Lancaster University, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.